Paresh,
All right.
floor is yours, man.
Thanks, Navid. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. Welcome to Azure Power Lunch. And let me first start sharing my desktop before I do anything else. Just let me know once it is visible, and then we can take it forward from there. Is it visible? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes,
Mm,
now.
oh, perfect. Thank you. Again, welcome everyone. As you see on the screen, today's topic is one of the hottest topics. Like you ask anybody out there, what is the one thing you're most concerned about, either moving to cloud or even managing your existing on-prem systems? Security is on everybody's mind, and that's where we are going to talk about today. Let me know if my audio is okay. If you want me to go fast, slow, that would be really helpful. I can pace. I will go a bit fast, but just let me know if it is too fast for you guys. All right. Before we go, let me introduce myself. I am Parish Sharda. My role here in Microsoft is an Azure Infra KSP, and as you see in the picture, we call ourselves Azure Jedi's. That's what our team is all about. And Navid asked me to put a nice picture, and unfortunately, I don't have a photogenic face, so I had to go back to Star Wars because they have always helped. Something about me, 12 plus years experience in the industry. Most of them have been within the Microsoft ecosystem. I played every role possible, I guess, as a partner, as a vendor, as a customer, as well as an employee with Microsoft. So I've been with the company quite long. Uh, Personally, my extensive experience is actually in integration of systems, including your line of business system, backend systems to your front end systems. That includes SAP, SharePoint, you name it. I work extensively in those areas. Lately, have been focused on IoT and recently on the Azure infrastructure. I'm a passionate tinkerer. I am have the ability to almost break anything in this world. That's about me. All right. Quickly, as we have the tradition, we will jump quickly to some of those updates. I think I might have to stop sharing and do it again because switching between the desktops on Windows would be really bad. Okay, fine. Uh, a quick one. I'll not go through all the updates because there are like tons and tons of updates which comes out every week from Azure. I'll focus one which are specifically on the Azure infrastructure side. Starting with an update on Azure Security Center. That's where we recently added the capability to actually go hybrid with Azure Security Center, where you not only can monitor your Azure resources, but you can also bring in your on-prem resources and monitor them through Azure Security Center. But beyond that, now you can also go ahead and do the same threat level detections for Linux. It uses an open framework, which is basically Audit D, which has kernel level access within Linux, and you can actually go ahead and now start detections of threat within the Linux the same way you were able to do it with Windows. And this again shows the commitment which Microsoft has for the open source. A public preview of VNet service endpoints. If you have been reading the news, this is something which everybody was looking forward for. And the public preview has been extended to all public regions in Azure right now. So this is another big update where customers who were waiting to try the VNet service endpoints to kind of restrict the access or stop the public endpoints for their networks. This is the one good one. One-click replication for Azure Virtual Machine within Azure Site Recovery. This is something where basically initially when you had to do the replication of or leverage ASR for any site, any VMs, you have to actually go into the your recovery vault and start doing from there. But now the same level of controls has actually the way we initially did it with backup, Azure Backup. Now you can actually go ahead and do it within the VM blade itself. So this makes it really easy to actually enable the ASR for those VMs. This is again a big one. We had seen a tremendous growth when it comes to adoption of Kubernetes within Azure platform. And that's where you see the next evolution of our Azure Container Service, ACS. Now it's called AKS. let's say. It's basically a managed Kubernetes platform, and this is something I think you should definitely look into. And it's really hot out there in Azure. And the last big one would be the support for Cray supercomputers are coming to Azure. This is a public announcement. I think we don't have the exact dates, but as and when you are seeing that how Azure is leading when it comes to HPC workloads, specifically workloads which require a lot of GPUs, a lot of processing capabilities for visualization, simulation, and all that sort of stuff. We are already leading in the public cloud space. And this is just one another I'll say feather in our hat, where we are also now bringing the supercomputing power of Cray onto Azure. So that's pretty much I wanted to cover from the service updates perspective. There are pretty much. I would always encourage you to subscribe to the Azure updates. You could do that once you actually go into this slide, when you get access to the slides. Now coming to the Azure Security Center, and why Azure Security Center? Obviously, I initially mentioned, right, everybody is worried about security. It's just not the type kind of security is not just now the business of CIOs or CISOs, because when something goes wrong, it impacts everybody. It impacts the organization, it impacts the customers, it impacts the shareholder, it impacts every stakeholder out there. And that's why this has become a very, very hot concern for almost everybody in the organization. And having said that, more and more organizations are adopting cloud, and when they adopt cloud, it brings its own flavor of challenges, because the way cloud works, it's like on demand. It brings agility, it brings more access to some of those developers out there who want to do something, try out something, spin out something, bring something very fast to their business end users. But then when they do that, there's always the chance of it's not like the on-prem where everything is tied down, everything is the nuts and bolts are screwed down to the every last thread of it, right? So that's why it brings a different level of challenge when it comes to visibility and control of distributed networks, because now your network is not just confined to your premise, but it could go beyond, well beyond there, right? As well as the global nature of it, because that's another area where many customers are facing challenge. It's not just about my geography, but the other geography has a different set of requirements, and it becomes really challenging to manage all of them. That's one part of it. And the problem is the cloud environment are, sorry, my voice is a bit husky, thanks to the Houston Astros win. So I'm having some issues with my throat. All right. So coming back, cloud environments are really dynamic, and that's where you never know what was existing yesterday will exist further. It scales up and scales down dynamically. And all right, you can still go ahead and monitor your infrastructure services or IaaS services, but what about platform services? How do you monitor them? How do you manage them? Will the existing tool set which you were using on-prem, will those still work out there? That's another challenge. And then uh, some of the on-premise issues are also being brought back onto cloud also, because that's how many of our customers have been adopting cloud. Although they understand the cloud model and cloud methodology, but many times they just bring their, when they do lift and shift, they actually bring many of their on-premise problem back into cloud, and which actually increases their, I'll say, attack surface, if I have to put it like that. Uh, Additionally, noisy alerts. This is another big challenge which many of the system admins say that, oh guys, you guys throw too many of alerts. But then again, these are one of the few of those challenges which most of our customers who are trying to adopt the cloud or who are already using cloud Azure are facing. And that's where Azure Security Center helps. It helps you prevent, it helps you detect, and it helps to respond to threats. I'll go through each one of those very briefly, then we will switch quickly to demo and then to Q&A. Let's start with gaining visibility and control. So this basically means ASC or Azure Security Center will provide you a unified view of security across all your Azure subscriptions. So this is a challenge where many of the customers actually, let's say, uses different subscription for different teams, different subscriptions for different environments, production, dev, test many times, and different subscription for different business units many times. So bringing all of that information together and managing them in a unified way is really challenging, and that's where the value of ASC brings. It can bring and monitor and detect threats and alert you about all those threats across all those Azure subscriptions. Uh, It will help you define security policies. What is a good one, because every organization will have its own security policy. Some of them allow certain ports, some of them don't allow those ports. So those would be actually applicable, where it's not just a standard solution, and you will also get an alert although you don't want that alert. You can actually go ahead and configure your security policies of what you want to be alerted for. You could use the connectors, APIs and SIM connectors, so that you can, some of the existing tool set which your teams are used to, you can take this content and logs out of Azure and bring it back into your own SIM tool if you want to do further analysis. So it makes it very easy to access, integrate, and analyze the security information. Okay. This is something which I was already talking about. So one is here, you can actually go ahead and determine what kind of alerts or prevention policies you want to include. What kind of so as I mentioned, right, you can actually go ahead and look into the all resources from compute, networking, storage, as well as at the application level, what's happening out there, as well as the same integration which I mentioned earlier, that you can go ahead, extract those information and use some of the existing tool set which you are used to actually go ahead and do that also. So that's one part of gaining visibility and control. Next is enable security at cloud speed. This is very important, because how good is your security is, I'll say, as of today. Tomorrow you never know, because as and when security solutions are becoming intelligent and smarter, so are the attackers, and they are devising new and new ways. In fact, the same cloud power is also accessible to them. You never know. So that's where the challenge is. So it's not just that I have the updated signatures and that's all about it. I am all today up to date with my security status, but you have to continuously assess that your security. You have to continuously improve that, and you have to continuously monitor your logs out there to determine some of the patterns and some of the anomalies. And that's where the security at the cloud speed comes into we want you can go ahead, prioritize your alerts so that you don't just get bogged down with too many alerts across all your subscription. You will have the severity of each of the alert, so that you can those get prioritized. You could do whitelisting of applications. So basically what this means is, once the VMs are running and we know a known set of processes which runs on those VMs, let's say if it was an Apache web server, or if it was, let's say, an IIS web server, we know what kind of applications or processes will run. You can actually go ahead and white those processes. And if anything else runs on those VMs out of the blue, you will get alerted, because that process is not whitelisted. So any new attack vector, any new process which gets in, so this is how that works. This is a very big one, limited exposures to brute force attacks. This is one very common thing which happens, where many times the administrators as well as developers forget to close their RDP port or SSH access to virtual machines. So this is where you actually go ahead, enable your RDP as well as the SSH for just in time. So basically it gives you a window of certain hours, so that you can go ahead and do your RDP, get onto the machine, do your work, and then shut it down back automatically. So this is much easier for you to manage who accesses the VMs, and as well as you're not adding too much burden to your administrators, so that they have to go and open the ports every time a developer accesses it or requests for that. Integrate partner solution. This is very big, where basically it's not just about what Microsoft or its own digital crimes units or threat intelligence unit, everything brings in, but we also brings in the value our partner brings. So there are niche solutions from our partners who do good stuff in certain areas concerning to security. We could actually go ahead and leverage some of those capabilities out of our partners. So for example, a web application firewall, you always have an option to use the ones which are available in Azure, but on top of that, you could actually go ahead and also use some of the solutions which are provided by our partners out there. Here is another one where you can actually go ahead and do vulnerability assessment use from a partner like Qualys. And the last one I will say the focus would be detect cyber attacks. This is where I think the power of Microsoft and the power of AI comes into picture. It's not just about kind of going through logs, looking into that spec, and then just trying to match a signature and then raising an alert. It's also about understanding patterns, understanding anomalies, understanding how those VMs are being accessed or used, who is communicating to which areas, which IPs are being communicated. So that's where the threat intelligence comes into picture, where we are not just providing you alerts, we are also providing you some of those. So in this case, for example, you could see some of the processes which get executed, some of the dumps, memory dumps we analyze to identify a known pattern of any past vector, threat vector. So we could go ahead and do that. We could also go ahead and look into the entire kill chain patterns, where it's not just about one alert, but how each of those alerts are correlated. Whether you somebody's tried to brute force an RDP into first, then maybe tried SQL injection into it, then started running some additional processes out there, and then started like, maybe exploiting some of the data by communicating to a known rogue IPs. We can actually go ahead and correlate all of those alerts. So it's not that you get bogged down with like 20 alerts just related to the same attack, but you can actually go ahead and see a kill chain pattern out there. And again, a built-in threat intelligence report, which gives you all the details of what, let's say, if it was a malware, what that malware does, how can you stop it, and this comes from our Microsoft Threat Intelligence out there. Right? The biggest advantage you get out of Azure Security Center, I understand monitoring, anybody can be doing monitoring, anybody can scan through signatures. Some of them also can bring on some of the threat intelligence. But to do it at a scale, so for example, if you have an existing on-prem tool, if you add another 20, 50 VMs, you will have to scale up your same tool also so that it can also detect the additional logs level. And then you have to add additional with Azure side Azure Security Center, it will scale up automatically. That's one part of it. But on top of that, it will also bring you advanced detection capabilities. This is where I say, right, the threat intelligence, the behavior analytics, the anomaly detection, a fusion of certain logs, combine alerts across a different kill chain, and try to correlate how. I'll just give you an example of how it works. Basically, from a attack perspective, if you see how it looks, a kill chain looks like. Somebody first tries to target and attack you. So it could be an brute force RDP, SSH, or a SQL injection attack, or it could be a DDoS attack, or it could be an intrusion which is detected by one of our partner solution also. We could leverage and identify that attack very quickly using Azure Security Center. So here is an example of somebody who is trying to log in, where with 48, if you see the screen, 48 failed attempts, out of which like 20 of the attempts were using a user which never existed, while one of them was with a login which was existing user. So this gives you an example probably that yeah, it doesn't look somebody who is kind of trusted trying to access it, but it looks more of a brute force, right? Similarly, here is install and exploit. So once somebody was successful to enter in, although you were alerted, probably it was very quick and you were not able to take action, let's say, or you didn't automate the action, and if it starts to install an exploit. So here is, for example, an analysis of a crash dump, which identifies a process or a shell code which has a previous known pattern of let's say malware or something like that. So this is another example of when something gets installed and exploited, we can get detected on top of that. Some of the examples you could see Metasploit or PDF.exe, malicious PDF or remote IE. So some of those Trojans, those can be very quickly detected out there. And the last is once it has attacked, it has extracted, installed it, it will do some post-patch activity, which basically means either setting up command and control units out there, setting up bots, or even extracting your data. All of that could be monitored actually, because we don't just bring a knowledge from the Azure Security Center or what is within your logs, but independent security feeds, Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit, as well as our Threat Intelligence Unit, all of that information gets feed into this. So basically, we greatly take care in ensuring that our products and services, including Office 365 and Dynamics and everybody, is secure. And all of the learnings from those products or securing those products actually gets feed into Azure Security Center as well. I'm not watching my chat window, just in case if anybody has questions, do stop me very quickly. And then we can, or maybe post it into the chat window and then we can go through it at the end of the session. All right, some of the resources which would be accessible to you, we can go ahead and look into it. So the Azure Security Center, you can start using it right away. There's a free tier, while some of the advanced capabilities are part of the standard tier. So you can go and look into those pricing and licensing details of Azure Security Center. With this, let me quickly switch to the demo. And as you could see, you can access your Azure. Once you go into the portal, you can actually access the Azure Security Center by clicking on this icon. Let me just go ahead and click that so that I can show you. Um, the first thing you could see is if you have multiple subscriptions, you can actually go ahead and filter out so that you can focus on specific subscription if you want to. In this case, because it's a demo, I had just filtered out on one subscription, but you can go have a combined view of all your subscription into a single place. So all your VMs, all your network components, all your storage thread alerts, everything gets placed into one. Very quickly, if you go ahead and choose it, you get the alerts for across your compute, network, storage, and application. You could get threat detections at various priority levels. So you can go ahead and start focusing on the ones which require quick actions or which are really severe out there. You get some of those views of like what are the most attacked resources, or which of them are getting you the more severe alerts out there. Any additional recommendations out there, any issues or diagnostic issues where something is stopped responding. This is where the fusion part of it comes up, where there is a kill chain or or an incident which was detected which has multiple alerts associated with it. Unfortunately, right now in this demo VM I don't have one, or else we could have actually gone through an entire kill chain and showed you a demo of that, right? The first thing you can go ahead and do it, determine your security policies. So I can click on the demo subscription and then go ahead and look into the what kind of data collections is enabled. So what workspace it is being used, what kind of security events you want to connect. You can then fine grain and determine your security policy using that. So right now I don't have this preview feature in this subscription. I have to use a different subscription, but you can actually go ahead and select the fine grain policy controls, which I earlier showed you. How about your notification, whom to send this notification to, what level of notifications are being sent. So I think this is the first step you would like to go ahead and configure so that you can start actually accessing the Azure Security Center features. I'm so sorry, I closed the main. Yeah. Let's quickly look into some of those capabilities which I discussed earlier. Let's look into some of those alerts which we saw. So let's go into, let's say, the VMs, the ones VMs which are running right now. So here is your recommendation. So you could see all of the VMs which are running out here, and this includes both Windows and Linux VMs. So it lets you that this many VMs, 7 out of those 13 VMs which are being monitored, are missing any endpoint protection. So you might either want to install that, or you might want to check into the health of some of those out there. So this is one of them. Another is where this is very critical, and as you could see, like in the recent news, like most of the attacks have happened because of missing security update. And this is where you can actually go ahead and look into very quickly, not just Windows updates, but Linux updates also. So if there are any severe security related Linux updates which are missing, you will actually go ahead and get it detected out of here, or get alerted on top of that, and you can go ahead and start automation. Obviously, with each of these alerts, you can actually associate a playbook, an automation playbook, so that you can actually automate the action also down the line if you want to do that. This is another critical one, missing disk encryption. You can go ahead and use that and see whether you want to encrypt the disks for all this many VMs. Next one would be the recommendations that you might want to use some of the partner solutions. So for example, in this case, we have mentioned that this many VMs are not having any vulnerability assessment solution. So probably you might want to consider a partner like Qualys out here, and you could actually go ahead and see what kind of solution they provide. So for example, here is the vulnerability assessment done for this VM, and they are mentioning that, okay, in this case, you have to go and look into this specific .NET framework, and then a remote code execution exists when Microsoft .NET process untrusted input. So you know the details of each of the KB article, and you can actually go ahead and start taking action on top of that. Right? So this is all about alerting based on the VM. Similarly, here are the detection out there. You can quickly look into the top alerts across all the resources rather than looking individual resources. Let's look at some of the security alerts which we get out here. Here is, for example, an example of a potential SQL injection. So you can go ahead and look into this, which will give you for which environment it belongs to, whether it is in Azure or on-prem or it's an on-prem resource. You could actually go ahead and onboard an on-prem resource also. Look at the attack resource out here, look into the details of it, and then you can actually go ahead and remediation steps also. What is it, what where it is, what needs to be done to actually prevent this injection attack out there. All right. So this is more from a detection perspective. Some of those other example which I initially mentioned, right? Just-in-time VM access. This is still in a preview feature. Basically, you can enable just-in-time access. So that what happens is basically for that specific VM, you could actually go ahead and request access. When you request access based on the policies you have configured, you will get a window. The NSG rules or the network security group rules will automatically created to open the RDP port or the SSH ports for those specific VMs for a certain period of time. And once that time frame goes away, it would automatically uh, get blocked automatically from that NSG. So this actually uses the RBAC as well as the NSG policies to kind of control a secure access to your VMs out there. Another is adaptive application whitelisting, which this is where we initially mentioned, right? Where you can have, uh, for example, the VMs are actually monitored continuously on, and then they are analyzed on known patterns or known set of processes and applications which run on those VMs. And as and when those VM gets changed, maybe over a period of time, you will get alerted that some of those processes which are not known to us, as in a whitelisting, or which is not their normal behavior, those have been detected. So in that case, you can go ahead and take an action on top of that also, what is required out there. Right? Any questions so far? I might have gone a bit fast, but
yeah, in the chat there's a couple.
Yeah, Parish, thanks for the demo. This is Jordan, by the way. I just have a quick question with regards to one of the features you didn't show, and it kind of illustrates, well, I wouldn't call it a bad security story that we may have, but kind of like an incomplete one, and it refers to the identity and access type of features. Now, from what I understand, this will pretty much just launch an OMS solution, right? If you go to the identity and access tab of your ASC, and it kind of shows the point that we don't really have, like, let's say I have a use case like the one that I'm faced with at the moment with my customer, just to have the AAD monitored and have some sort of a notification whenever an MFA is turned off, for example, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, from what I see here, this is pretty much logging on the actual VM as opposed to a failed AAD logon. It could be related to an application or whatever. So I'm just kind of wondering, is there any plan to unify this? There's been talk of this for a while, but just any particular terms or any action that's being done on the matter? Because it's kind of, I mean, puts us in a bad situation when we explain it to the customer that we have like 3 places, OMS security center, and then each service like the AAD would have its own audit logs, etc.
So I would say that so there are workarounds on how it could be integrated together. Let's say setting of custom alerts and putting them into a place, and then including them into your Azure Security Center, for example. You could do that kind of work here. Now,
so those custom alerts will be just for we can define our own based on.
You can define your own custom alerts within OMS and then start to bring them out here as well, right? That is one way of doing it. But as you already know, and you mentioned that there are already plans and discussions going on integrating, and you are actually going to see more and more those coming in very near future. I don't have any timelines as of now from my from the product group teams. So we can obviously take this discussion offline to or check with the product groups out there. But as of from a public content perspective, I would say that the more and more integration is happening between OMS and Security Center and the Azure portal itself altogether. And down the line, you might see something what you are asking for.
Okay, thanks.
Let me jump back to the chat window and then. Multiple operators monitoring ASC. Is there a way to take ownership of an alert so that others know who? Okay, yeah. So right now, I think that that's not possible in this where somebody is, it's as if you are asking of, well, okay. So I would answer it like that, like you can integrate some of these solutions, specifically using the OMS integrator for some of the ticketing tools like ServiceNow or there are three others of those, and you could go ahead and uh, just a second, let me show you. Okay, you can go ahead and then raise tickets out there, and then from there you can actually go ahead and take the because I think they're taking of ownership and then doing an action might require more auditing in place where you want to log everything what has been done. So, and there are niche ticketing tools which do that, right? Incident tools. So
Yep,
probably you could go ahead
like
and do
service.
that.
Yeah, like ServiceNow. There's a
Yeah, like
connector for
service.
ServiceNow. Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, you could go
Thank
ahead
you.
and do that.
Thank you.
Okay, what are the plans to unify ES monitoring that we got? If we deploy a for an NVA from a marketplace via ARM template and not using ESC action integration in the future for this. Okay, so
Yeah.
if you integrate, okay, I cannot comment on the future timeline right now, what will be integrated or not, but I hear the feedback is right and correct, the integration of some of those NVs. And as we mentioned, right, we are already integrating many of our partner solutions. And like, for example, F5, if you have an NVA of, for an F5, you could actually go ahead and integrate that here also.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Paresh, Vishal here. Do you know it's only F5 or maybe there are
There are few of them right now, and then again, as I said, right, the list can get very quickly updated. So let me very quickly show you the line here out here, right? So Trend Micro, Checkpoint, Qualys, some of the Barracuda, Cisco. So some of those marketplace offerings from our partners which are available can be actually integrated out there. Now the level of integration again depends on each of the partners. So we might have to look into the specific cases and then work with the team to know what exactly you need. But as far as overall integration is concerned, yes, those would be available.
Oh, okay. I believe Palo Alto is kind of from ages
Yeah,
going.
and Palo Alto is a great partner, and we do have a lot of marketplace offering from them.
Yeah.
I'll have to check back for on this specifically whether any integration with the security center is available or not. But let me take this as a kind of a takeaway action item from my side.
Thanks, Paresh.
Yeah.
Appreciate.
I think I paced it really nicely. I was not expecting it because Azure Security Center is such a big topic. Okay, the reason is I'll tell you, I didn't have in my demo environment a real security threat or an incident to showcase. But if we had one, actually, we could have actually shown you. Unfortunately, because these are demo environment, it's very difficult to create one of those. But let me just show you if I can show you how it looks like. Okay, it might be disabled out here, but let me see, or maybe let me just open up a web. You see investigation not available out here.
Paresh, we can see your screen.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
okay,
you
sorry.
stopped sharing. Yeah.
Let me share it again. Thanks, Suraj, for reminding. Yeah, you see the threat intelligence out here. Let me just click on this, and then we can go into the investigation window. So what happens is when a security incident actually happens, you get into a different view also altogether. So right now you could see in the last 24 hours we didn't have anything. So let me see if I can change the filter. Last 30 days. Nah. So I think this demo environment didn't have, and I'm sorry for that because it's very difficult to actually have such a incident recreated for a demo environment. But basically here you could see you will be able to see what kind of threat it is, where's the origin of it, whether it was a DDoS attack happening or whether it was a brute force attacks, from where it is happening, and even if the attacker was successful and was able to kind of enter into your VMs or into your resources and starting exporting some of the data or communicating back to known rogue actors out there in wild, you could actually go ahead and see all of the details out there. You could do additional analytics on top of this. This is basically integration of our OMS solution also. So you could use a lot of log analytics capabilities out there to actually go ahead and do additional analysis on top of that. But this is one of the great advantage of using Azure Security Center as per compared to any other IT security solution out there, because you will never be able to get that level of intelligence, threat intelligence. And you might have known in the past few I'll say few years that Microsoft has been coming in news for their AI capabilities, for the amount of investment and the research Microsoft is doing on the AI part of it. And all of that actually flows back into the solutions which we offer to our customers. That's where this threat intelligence becomes really, really helpful and powerful. Okay, any other questions? No, I think we're good then. So that's pretty much what I had to show today. We still have a few more minutes. If anybody has a question, we can go through it. You could actually go ahead and start using ASC today itself. As I mentioned, okay, let me show you some of those resources which are really helpful, which I also found it useful for myself for my own learning. One is obviously, and all of these links are there in the PowerPoint, which would be available on the MSDN channel out there. One is definitely the MSDN videos. Some of those videos are specific on Azure Security Center. Another is the blogs, where more and more updates keeps on coming out as and when the solution gets updated. Some on the pricing details. I don't go into details of the pricing, but you actually see what happens. Like if you go with the free tier, what is accessible to you? You can connect partner solutions. You can do security policy assessment and recommendations. But the advanced features like the just-in-time VM access or the adaptive application control or the advanced threat detection and the threat intelligence, which we mentioned, those come at during the standard tier also. And with free tier, you can only monitor the Azure resources, basically all of your Azure subscription. But with the standard tier, you can actually also go ahead and integrate any of your on-premise systems. So basically, you will connect your on-prem systems into a log analytics workspace, and that log analytics workspace will be then integrated into the Azure Security Center. So that's how you will be able to monitor your on-prem center as well. You can also go ahead and try out standard tier without actually spending any money. So basically, I think there is okay, there is a 60-day trial, and then within certain limits, and then you can actually go ahead and even try out the standard tier and understand the value it brings to you. Beyond the standard data, if there is any additional data, then those are the pricing for this, and this keeps on changing. So I will always recommend that you go ahead and look out the pricing details out there. All right. So these are pretty much a few of those important resources I wanted to share.
Yeah, I recently had an experience where the Azure Security Center actually detected a brute force attack and another compromised IaaS SQL database. Mm-hmm. And what was nice about it was really nice about it was it happened to be an enterprise agreement account that this happened on, and the people from Microsoft themselves actually called to advise the account to say, this is happening right now in your environment in one of your subscriptions. And the customer responded to say, well, how did you know? And they said, open up your security center and look here. Wow. So it's an incredible tool. And I also like the idea. Can you just reiterate one more time? Because in your experience, since Azure Security Center supports multiple subscriptions, unlike where when you create an OMS workspace, I know you could point multiple solutions in the workspace, but how do you see Azure Security Center being used in large enterprises? Is it a separate security team different from the network operations center that are using OMS? In other words, do you see use for both tools and definitely a different set of people? If you could just talk to some of that.
So, okay, so in my experience, I think most of the CISO organizations are primarily using the Azure Security Center because I recently was talking to one of a multinational organization, and CISO was sitting out of Europe, and he says that we have teams who are building apps and resources out here in US. And frankly speaking, I'm worried right now because I don't have any visibility or control or what's happening out there from a security perspective. So we actually quickly showed him the Azure Security Center, and he said, yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. I don't want to go ahead and stop them doing what innovative work they are doing. I don't want to stop them saving money for my company when they are using Azure. I want to continue them doing that, but I want to do it in a controlled fashion. So most of the interactions I had from my personal experience had been within the security and CISO organization who have been using it.
Yeah.
OMS
Oh,
on the other hand, OMS on the other hand is being used more from the operations team who want to do a lot of other stuff also, not just security. Because as you know, right, OMS also includes a security component, but also includes a lot of other components out there, right?
folks, we are 10 minutes over. Thank you very much, Paresh, for your session. And if you have any other questions, we're happy to take them offline. So I hope everyone can join us next week. We have a very good